Good evening. This is Gary Green, Genealogist General, and we're going to discuss the genealogy state point of contact tonight with our guest speaker, Dennis Van Warmer from Michigan. He's on the genealogy committee for the SAR. I need to point out that there are three different state points of contact as far as the SAR is concerned. There's a membership state point of contact, and that person receives referrals from the SAR and then initiates the uh, preparation of applications for new members. Then there's the registrar state point of contact, primarily working with Jonathan Toon, the national registrar. He works membership after the applications have been approved, and then he reconciles with the state society in the reports at the end of the year for those who have paid dues. And he's primarily dealing with membership secretaries or registrars for people who are keeping track of the membership in their society. Tonight's presentation is genealogy state point of contact, and this point of contact works primarily with the genealogy staff while applications are being reviewed, and he also coordinates follow-on updates of pending applications or re-reviews. So our guest speaker tonight is Dennis Van Warmer, and I'm going to ask Dennis to pick up from this point.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, as Gary stated, my presentation tonight is on the state point of contact, roles, responsibilities, and issues. Let's start with roles and responsibilities. The first question I had in preparing for this is, do any actually exist in writing? And I found a few, as you can see here, but not a whole lot. So on the Genealogy Committee webpage, it does reference that the genealogist general is to keep the state point of contacts up to date. I found nothing in the Genealogy Committee policies, and an application preparation guide, it talks a little bit about that the state point of contact is to resolve issues resulted from pending applications, and he is the contact between the SAR genealogy staff and the rest of the people in his state, and he should be the only state point of contact. What's missing, in my mind, is a full description of the roles and responsibilities. This picks up some of the key points, and as genealogist General Gary just mentioned, that the state point of contact deals with primarily the genealogy staff, but I think it's somewhat incomplete as to what's available to understand the full job description. First of all, we went through a poll, 73 responses on these 4 questions. So I've added the percent who responded. Again, it's based on a number of 73 responses. So only 22% were actual state point of contacts. Currently, talked about or asked about who actually reviews the new applications for your society, and it could be and usually is several. You can see chapter genealogist, registrar, and state registrar are the key points. Next question, the same question for who reviews supplemental applications. Here there are fewer chapter registrar genealogists, about the same state registrar, and that does correspond with anecdotal information that says some of the supplemental applications do not receive as much review as the new ones. And then finally, who in your state society is in a position to review the items on the SPoC checklist, which we'll talk about next. And that's fairly well spread across, with no one position having a large percentage of who does that. But chapter registrar, genealogist, and state registrar were the most, with state genealogist and SPoC a little bit behind. So what are the items in the state point of contact review? This comes directly from the application checklist that's found in the appendix of the application preparation guide, excuse me. Was formerly called the prima facie lists. Excuse me. It was previously called a prima facie list, and it was a top 5 on that checklist. Genealogist General Gary moved up a couple, and we took a couple off there. So this represents the actual list that is being looked at by personnel, we'll call it that right now, in Louisville when the applications are received. And you can see what the 5 basic ones are. And in red is the reference that is the authority either to the genealogy committee policies and or the application preparation guide. Next, E.G. Gary had at last month published a list of a spreadsheet of data of pending applications, both new and supplemental, and administrative errors from this list I just showed for this year through about mid-October. Oops, sorry. So this represents a portion of that spreadsheet. I removed the pending columns, both for new applications and supplemental. So it's just the administrative errors. And in order to make it fit on this sheet, I removed any state society that had either 0 errors for the year so far or only 1. So this does represent the top third or so of the top violators of the administrative errors in the society, in the National Society this year. As I mentioned here, the administrative errors apply to both new and supplemental applications. So they're mixed in, that number's in there. I asked what were the types of errors that were found, and Gary checked these through with the staff in Louisville, and these 6 items came back as the main ones. This is not necessarily in numerical order or priority order, but these are the ones that the staff came back with and said are the ones most often violated. Birth certificates lacking gender, the DAR record copies improperly printed, missing signatures, insufficient funds, and problems with the paper being either not correct or not printed properly. Now, the issue here is, first of all, as it says, you have a delay in logging in the application if it has administrative errors. That means it is literally not considered received at headquarters until those administrative errors are corrected. Jonathan Toon does not process it and pass it on to the genealogy staff. He sets it aside until those administrative errors get corrected. So there's a delay as far as the application goes in officially getting received and getting in the queue for review. Worst case is if you have missing signatures on the application, that application has to be physically mailed back to the state for those missing signatures by Jonathan Toon. And recently, due to the construction at headquarters, that there's an even further delay because of the construction and the financial issues at headquarters, that Jonathan Toon now holds them and bundles them for when he sends back membership certificate packages to save postage. It all means additional time and expense for the staff. They have to do extra work when they could be doing other work, some more mailing costs, and just general delay on the applications. So the real question for tonight is to start looking at how do we resolve this situation. Now, for an example, just to get the discussion going, this is how we attempt to minimize the administrative errors in Michigan. So the first issue or first item, which is an issue that I've mentioned to G.G. Gary before, is that I am the state genealogist and the state point of contact, but as state genealogist, I am not directly involved in application review and submission. It goes from our chapter registrar to the state registrar to the state secretary and on to Louisville. I don't normally see any of those applications. We do have a written board-approved policy in Michigan on how we handle applications, and in that policy, it states that the chapter registrars and or genealogists must review and approve all applications, both new and supplemental, before submitting them to the state registrar. Again, by this same written policy, the state registrar does not accept any applications, new or supplemental, from anyone other than the known chapter registrar genealogists. Once he reviews and approves the applications, and again, he reviews and approves all applications, new and supplemental, and that includes the admin or SPoC items. He then sends them on to the membership secretary, who does the final processing before sending the package to Louisville. But he also does review for the administrative items. So in that sense, we have a 3-level review of the admin items: chapter level, state registrar, and state membership society, or excuse me, membership secretary. So are we perfect on that? No. We had one admin error in September, but what we do is we have a monthly chapter registrar and genealogist committee meeting, and at that meeting we review issues and errors in the applications, not just admin errors, but anything we have, and we talk about other updates, issues, and items of interest to this committee. So in my mind, this helps reinforce the need for constant vigilance and also contributes to the ongoing education of the application process, rules, and guidelines through this committee. My MISAR genealogy committee has entered its 4th year now of operation, and we have very good participation from the chapter registrars and genealogists, and we use that as a method to communicate with each other, help each other with applications and problems, and make sure we're up to date on what the rules are. So that leads me to the slide of what does it look to me or to us as issues at headquarters. The one that I have specifically is that to me, the genealogy staff is not always adhering to contact rules themselves. They're not notifying the SPoC on all applications with admin errors. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And at times I question when can or should the genealogy staff go around the SPoC, if ever. On the other hand, in attempting to understand what the process is for reviewing admin errors, G.G. Gary again checked with the staff and came back with this 3-item list. Some of the checks are done by Kelly Moore, who, as I understand it, is generally the person who receives and opens the mail. Also Mike Scroggins and Jonathan Toon. They check for Michigan's missing signatures, improper amount of funds, and problems with the paper or form. Applications with missing signatures then get mailed back to the state secretary by John Toon, but without necessarily notifying the SPC, at least in my case, because I'm not the state secretary. Other items are done by Susan Acree, DAR, checking the DAR forms, checking the birth certificates, date formats, and those problems she passes on to Denise Hall, who sends an email to the SPoC. to inform him of what the issues are. So a couple of things that are coming up in the future. These are proposed changes initiated by the Genealogist General. The first one is this policy change to 6.3001. The first section in black is what's currently in the policy, having to do with the time for pending and queues. In red is what he's proposed as a future change relative to admin errors. So communication with the genealogy staff will be routed through the state point of contact to give that a little bit more formality. The state point of contact cannot give permission for an applicant or other society member to contact the genealogy staff directly. We as state points of contact should not be telling a applicant or chapter registrar to go ahead and deal with the genealogist staff directly. The other proposal is to the Genealogist General Award. This is the award that he presents to state societies based on a number of criteria. I'll leave it here for you to read the details, but what I want to address is the part in the middle that's in red, which I'll show in larger type here. So he's proposing the add of administrative errors as defined by the application preparation guide requirements checklist will be counted as pending activity regardless of being cleared by the end of the calendar year. Now, what this means relative to the full award criteria is if you have regular pending applications, you have 45 days to clear them, even if they come in at least 45 days, I should say, even if they come in at the end of the year. If one gets pended on December 31st somehow, you have 45 days to get it resolved, and so that it will not count against you or the state for this GG award. But in this case, admin errors do not count. You can't clear them. Whatever they are, they're counted as pending, even if they're cleared by the end of the year. So an admin error, to me, my understanding is that counts against the state, regardless of when it's cleared. So in summary, this is what I see as, or what I feel I've come up with as issues relative to this whole topic of what does the SPoC do and how do we deal with administrative errors. So first of all, it's clear to me that the SPoC role is assigned to different officers in different societies. Sometimes it's the, oops, how did that happen? Sometimes it's the state registrar, state secretary, or in my case, it's the state genealogist. Roles and responsibilities do not seem to be fully documented by national, and they do not seem to be consistent across the different state societies. I have seen from before that the membership application process definitely is not consistent across different state societies. And key issue for tonight's discussion is how best to resolve the admin errors to avoid repeating them. Part of that is how do we best communicate between the states and national personnel, because it seems to be incomplete and or consistent. And we have a couple of proposed changes, one to the policy 63001 and one to the Genealogist General Award criteria sufficient. So with that, we can go on with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate the input. Want to add a couple of caveats. Because of the construction in the building, the administrative reviews have been suspended for looking at birth certificates and date format and the DEAR forms. So they will go directly to the those applications will go directly to the genealogy staff and then maybe pended from that point until we get folks back and into the building and they can start coordinating again. The genealogy staff is working from home. They come in on Mondays or Tuesdays to pick up new applications and drop off applications been approved or pending. And then they go back to their home situation and work from there. Dennis mentioned 45 days from an application being pended that you'd have that capability of getting it fixed. That is a proposed change to the genealogist general award. Right now, if you are pended on the 31st of December, we'll be you because you cannot, you don't have any grace period. So I'm trying to put that 45 days grace period in to account for minor problems that can be fixed. So that is not the rule at the moment. It's a proposed rule change, and I think it makes sense to do that. So we recorded this on the day after this presentation was made by Dennis with about 84 registrars from across the nation. There were multiple questions that came up during that discussion that I was not able to record, but I felt that this information needed to be out for state points of contact to review. If you have questions or concerns that were not addressed by Dennis or myself tonight, please contact me by email and let me know what needs to be distributed to the rest of the state points of contact. This has been a review of the genealogy state point of contact activities, and our guest speaker tonight was Dennis Van Wormer. And I thank you, Dennis, for your time, and we'll call it a night. Appreciate it.